Maine, and welcome back to another episode of Inside Adelaide. As always, we'll be covering the stories that matter most to you and your community. On tonight's show, we profile Adelaide's community radio station, Fresh FM. Ben Allison looks at a fringe preview. We also talk to some of the elite athletes rowing in next month's national championships. But first, since the Rand Labor government decided late last year to privatise timber plantations in the southeast, the local community have been up in arms. On Tuesday, they headed to Parliament House to give the government a piece of their minds.
They came, they saw, and they were angry. On Tuesday, 3,000 people travelled from Mount Gambier to protest on the steps of Parliament House.
It's the community from Mount Gambier coming over to tell our state government to take the hands off our forests. We don't want them to privatise it, we don't want them to forward sell the rotations.
Well, the community's very emotional. It's really overwhelming, the amount of support that we've received.
The state government's decision to forward sell the rights to log South Australia's plantation farms for 37 years has provoked a great deal of anger in the state's southeast. Regional communities claim that the new owners will send the logs offshore for processing into logs and pulp, robbing the community of 5,000 jobs. It's the second time the protesters have been down. They were down here in November for another rally outside Parliament.
We've come a long way and we deserve some answers. We want answers today.
Well, it doesn't seem to be that long ago that I stood in exactly the same place. I sent the message to Mr. Rand that we will be back and we will continue to come back until this decision is overturned.
30 logging trucks stopped traffic for half an hour on North Terrace. Communities in the Green Triangle, including Mount Gambier, Penola and Millicent, are dominated by logging and its flow-on industries.
We had the minister come down and say we needed to reinvent ourselves. How can you reinvent ourselves? We can't dig a hole like the middle of Australia are currently doing and export uranium. We've only got the farming as far as fishing, cattle and sheep, and we've got the pine industry. It's the heart and soul of our region.
Because this decision to forward sell the trees just doesn't impact on timber industry jobs, it will impact and decimate our entire community.
You're talking about a reduction in house prices, you're talking about a reduction in population, so then essential services then disappear, your health services, all those, it's a knock-on effect.
Well, it'll kill the southeast.
If you were to buy the rights for, say, the next 10 years, you'd be paying sort of a discounted rate as you go forward because you're paying for something you're not going to accrue for, say, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 10 years. So that would bring the price down, but it would mean the government would actually have access to that money straight away.
Former State Premier and Forestry Minister Rob Kerrin says forward selling is fraught with danger because the buyer gets a significant discount as opposed to selling year by year.
Forward selling, in its purest form would be to get the revenue in now for the forest harvest into the future. So you're pulling forward revenue for now, but it'll cost you, in future years you won't have that revenue coming forward.
Locals say the Rand government hasn't fully considered the impact forward selling will have on local communities.
We employ thousands of people in the southeast, you guys. We also employ thousands of people all over the state, building houses, our houses.
My children have no future in the south
because it's being taken away. That's the whole ethos of it. Is some towns revolve on the timber industry. Without the mill, people are going to be moving out.
Yeah, it'll be the end of Mount Gambier and the surrounding district.
The state government's current contract with Forestry SA is designed more around maximising benefits for local communities than for profit taking.
Part of the thing with Forestry SA at the moment is that they've got to mill most of their timber in the southeast. If in fact you sold the rights and didn't require the company to mill in the southeast, you'd probably see the sawmills close. That would have a huge impact on the whole economy down there.
But while the loggers protest, there are question marks on the viability of their own industry.
Machines that have closed are actually 35 and 50-year-old. The security of loggers is probably a concern to them, but also the cheap imports that are coming from overseas have made a big impact on whether they reinvest in the area.
It's certainly sending out some negative messages, and until this forward sale issue is resolved, then any further investment in the industry here in South Australia is probably unlikely.
Karen says the Rand government are attempting to realise short-term gains to make up for a poor budgetary year, which has seen massive public service job cuts, themselves resulting in more rallies and industrial action.
When you're getting into difficult budget times, part of Treasury's job is to spot what are the opportunities to bring money forward into the current budgets, to try and sort of probably minimise the number of cuts you've got to have.
And the loggers themselves have a message for Mike Rann and Kevin Foley.
I think he needs to look a little bit further into the southeast instead of being cushy here, sitting on his backside.
The solution is simple. All Mr. Rand needs to do is pick up the phone and actually consult with us and talk to us about this decision.
Run, Rand, run!
He has to listen, because we won't give up.
Liam Mannix, Inside Adelaide.
And now onto something a little bit different. Since 1998, Fresh FM have been a vital part of the Adelaide community radio scene, with a broad range of techno, dance and hip-hop music that you can't find anywhere else on your dial. Almost every person who works there is a volunteer. Joanna has the story.
With 153,000 listeners per week, over 200 volunteers, and listing the State Government of South Australia, Flinders University and Clipsal 500 as their sponsors, there's no wonder why this unique South Australian radio station is now competing with the big guys. Fresh FM, referred to on air as Fresh 92.7, is a not-for-profit youth community radio station. On air since 1998, Fresh 92.7 received a full-time broadcasting licence in 2002, with all operations running from studios in Angus Street, Adelaide, steadily growing to eventually taking over the 3-level building. In 2010, Premier Mike Rann presented Fresh President Andrew Andrews with a $100,000 grant from the state government to build a brand new state-of-the-art broadcasting facility here in Adelaide City's East End. In October, Fresh moved in and now offers their volunteers the opportunity to work with industry standard equipment.
Fresh had been in its old Angus Street premises for 10 years. It desperately needed new equipment to move with the times and to move into the digital age and to move into purpose-built premises. So we approached the state government spelling out the case for that, and that's how it happened.
This is no ordinary radio station. Fresh is predominantly run by volunteer members. People of all age groups, nationalities and levels of experience offer their time to develop the station into what is now one of the leaders out of 9 community stations in Adelaide. Speaking with 2 volunteers, we hear why they became involved.
Well, I've always been intrigued with radio ever since my friends told me I had a face for it, and then I figured being a volunteer is the best launching pad if you wanted to follow a career in radio, or at least, find out what's involved. And yeah, I'm having a blast at Fresh, reading the news and being on air with Tim.
I always thought community radio is such a good sort of vantage point to launch a career and practice and hone your skills, and it has proved to be that.
Priscilla Monger, who started out as a volunteer, is now the content manager.
I was volunteering for about 3 years beforehand, got to know the business and the people here. Working in the media was obviously a passion of mine, and Fresh was a passion of mine, and so it all just came together, decided to get involved, and as soon as I loved it.
We have a very small staff who run a lot of the things behind the scenes, but in terms of our on-air presenters and all of our off-air technical team, every single one of them, and it runs into the scores, is a volunteer.
All programs on Fresh are produced and hosted by volunteers from differing backgrounds who are hopeful to make it in the media industry. Mr. Nolan gave some insight into what we can expect from Fresh 92.7 in 2011.
Well, I think we can look forward to a lot more variety in our programming in terms of specialist shows. You'll see some slight changes to our programming format, I'd say, over the coming 12 months. We're hoping to be a lot more reactive. We're introducing a lot more internet reactivity in terms of surveys and things like that. And of course, we want to increase our volunteer base.
If you're a budding DJ, announcer, newsreader, or simply love radio, head down to Fresh and see how you can get involved.
We look for enthusiasm and passion, really. There's jobs from everything to on-air, which is pretty obvious, to doing technical stuff behind the scenes, to answering phones. There's really a role for everyone. So as long as you're a happy person, enthusiastic and want to be here, then we want you here.
Joanna Robson, Inside Adelaide.